Hey everyone, my name's Dale. On this channel I do spec for spec comparisons, and today I'm comparing the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid XSE versus the Limited model, and the question is it worth spending more money to get the Limited model? I used to work for the equivalent of a Kelley Blue Book if you're in the US, or a Glasses Guide if you live in Europe, and I used to advise manufacturers on what spec adds value to their vehicles, and now I do this on YouTube. If you don't have time to watch this video, I have a website linked below called Check Your Spec, where you can effectively check your spec, see what the value of that specification is going to be for whatever vehicle you would like to pick, whether it's a car, van, Acura, Bentley. In this case we're looking at a RAV4. You could go down a massive list of options we've got in the system here, and then you go down and you can see what the value of that specification is going to be worth, from a 360 camera, adaptive cruise control, tells you today's value, the value on a 21 model. You can look at the future value, and at the very bottom here it tells you the value of that specification. So if you're looking at a black edition or anything like that, this system will tell you what that price is going to be. But let's jump back into the RAV4, and you can ignore the far right column with the LE model. It's just how the Toyota website is set up. But I'll just explain what's going to go on. Effectively, I'm going to value the standard equipment only. So that means that if one vehicle doesn't come with climate control and the other vehicle does, I'm going to value the climate control. Specifically, that specific piece of standard equipment. We'll run down as fast as we can, go through the differences in spec. And the values are based on a 3-year forecast. So that means that if you buy the vehicle today and you sell it in 3 years' time, what is that specification going to be worth? So let's get started. So you're either going to spend $37,960 on an XSE or $40,605, which is a difference, as you can see there, of $2,645. So I'm basically going to tell you by the end of this whether you should spend $2,645 to get the Limited model. Now, first things first, with this piece of spec, they jump straight into the alloy wheels. You can skip ahead if you've seen my videos before because you already know what the answer is. But basically, alloy wheels don't add value unless they change material. So what I mean by that is, if let's say the XSE had steel wheels, which it never would, and then it jumped up to an alloy wheel, we would definitely give it an additional value. But if you go from alloy wheel to alloy wheel, no additional value. If it's 18 inches to 20 inches, no additional value. If it's a style change, no additional value. We only change the value for the material properties. Steel to alloy gets a value difference. Alloy to titanium, magnesium, and all that stuff, they get value changes. You don't get a value change if it's alloy wheel to alloy wheel on the same, if it's just the same wheel. So we'll come down to the next one, which is, on the XSE, you get color keyed upper and black painted. That is the important bit, black painted lower front bumper. On the Limited, it is not black painted. And in that respect, I think it's worth less money. This is meant to be, the Limited is meant to be a more premium vehicle. It's meant to look more premium, therefore it should have more paint on it, in theory, all around the areas that you expect, including the bumper, which is a pretty prominent part of making a vehicle look premium or not. They haven't done that, so it gets a minus $150. Next one is that on the XSE, it does get blue painted shock absorbers. It doesn't get that on the Limited. We just wouldn't add things, value to things like that. Come down again, you've got the integrated LED fog lights on the Limited model and vertical LED accent lights. So they're not fog lights, they're just accent lights. However, they are positioned in the same place as fog lights, and you would think that the XSE would get fog lights as standard, but clearly they don't. But I'm not going to give any additional value. They're in the same position. They're effectively going to do the same job. They're both LED, so they're certainly bright enough. So there's no additional value that I've added to either of those vehicles there, well, specifically the Limited model. But normally if I was going to do that, it'd be around $250. But in this case, I think they're too similar. And I think the XSE's integrated lights actually look better, personally. Next thing, dark grey metallic coloured hexagon patterned bar front grille. Nice mouthful there. Changes the visual appearance of the vehicle, so much so that you could probably tell them side by side when you're walking around an auction or a forecourt or wherever you're going to buy a vehicle, and makes it look better. So I've added a little bit of value there of $100 just to sort of show that the difference, you know, in the trim level there. Next one is on the XSE, you get black painted heated power outside mirrors with turn signal and blind spot warning indicators and folding feature. On the Limited, you now get color keyed door mirrors. So it's weird that they didn't do the bumpers, and you also get puddle lights. And for that, I've added a little bit of value for the paint. So $50. Puddle lights is debatable whether you'd add value to that or not. But in this case, I've just done $50 for the wing mirrors. We'll come down to our next piece of specification, which is that the Limited gets chrome accented color keyed door handles with the touch sensor unlock feature, and on the XSE it is color keyed. So it's the difference between chrome or color. Very subjective. I personally prefer it being painted. Some people prefer it being chrome. I'm not going to add any value either way on what your personal subjective opinion is on door handles. But if you want to pay more for the Limited because it has, you know, chrome on it, that's your choice. I personally wouldn't. Next up, we have heated and ventilated front seating. Now, the way that Toyota have done this is a little bit silly, because both of these trims do get heated seats. It's the Limited that gets the ventilated seats. And for that, I've added $100 effectively per seat, $200. I would have to get the vehicle into test to see how good the ventilated seats are, and that's something we used to do. If there was a specific feature we were unsure of, we would ask a manufacturer to send that vehicle to us for that specific test. So in this case, I would need to test it. On my personal vehicle, I have ventilated seats in 2 vehicles that we have, and on the one that's 15 years old, the ventilated seats are better than the new version that we have. So I just have to test it. But in this case, $200. Soft text trimmed seats. Now they both get soft text trimmed seats. It is basically the difference between the stitching, effectively. So there's no additional value. They both get the same seats, slightly different trim and stitching, but they're both 8-way power adjustable. They're both 4-way powered for the passenger seat. So yeah, no additional value. And just highlighting there that the XSE does in fact get heated front seating, even though they make it look like it doesn't further up the list. So Toyota, you just need to fix that on your price list here. We'll come down to our next option, which seems to be buried very deep. Blue accented interior, including blue stitching on the dash, doors and seat, and black anti-slip in-dash storage trays with blue ambient lighting. God, another mouthful. That's on the XSE. On the Limited, it's dark brown. So again, it's a difference between if you like blue or dark brown. I'm not going to penalize the value of this either way. That's entirely your subjective opinion on whether you want a dark brown accented interior or a blue accented interior. And it may well sway your buying decision, but from an overall market perspective, we just wouldn't value it like that. Black fabric trimmed headliner on the XSE and ash grey fabric trimmed headliner on the Limited. Again, this is a colour thing. Doesn't bother me too much. Maybe it bothers some people on what their headliner colour is, but again, a zero value for that. And then we'll come down again. Yeah, so 12.3-inch digital cluster on the Limited as standard and optional on the XSE. Let's see if I've got a little picture of it here. Yes, I do. So right on over here, you can see the digital display right there. It does look a lot better than the 7-inch display that is on the rest of the range, and I can see why they put it onto the Limited. I'd probably put it on the ranges a few down just to sort of get those clients into that vehicle. But yeah, pretty significant upgrade. Makes the car look more modern. It'll keep looking modern for years to come. When you have the analog gauges, you know, you can't change anything with them. They're potentially not as clear. However, we've got to keep in mind when we're doing the forecasting and the residual values like this, when we're pricing items, is that this is based in 3 years' time. So what is the screen technology going to be like in 3 years' time on a Toyota RAV4? Is it going to be a 4K display? Is it going to be anti-glare? You know, all these things we've got to think about, and that's why you don't put massive values onto some of these items thinking, wow, it's got a digital screen and no other trim level does. You've always got to have a mind of what that screen's going to look like in a few years' time, because they will get better. And we'll just run down even more. Okay, JBL audio, premium audio system, standard on the Limited, optional on the XSE. Yeah, if you've gone from one car that's got a really bad audio system to a car with a JBL or a Bose or a Bang & Olufsen system, it is a significant upgrade. And some people's buying decisions are based on how good the audio system is, and they will definitely option it out, which is what Toyota have done here by giving you the option of optioning it out. So $250. Some manufacturers will add $5,000 for an audio system, like Bentley. They all get the same value from a valuation point of view. They're all generally $250 that we add. So if it's a Bose, a Bang & Olufsen, a JBL in this case, they would all say $250. It wouldn't matter if this said Bose in it instead of JBL. It would still be the same value that I would provide. And we'll go down to safety. I'll touch on this a little bit, but we don't add value for safety. Basically, we don't want to encourage manufacturers to add certain safety equipment at certain trim levels and effectively make it pay to be safe, you know, pay to survive, you know. So we don't encourage that by giving them a value. We're not going to say, oh, by the way, if you put more airbags in your car, we're going to give you an extra $1,000 on top of your value. So because then they would just make airbags an option and you know, go down that route. So we never ever encourage stuff like that. I mean, they wouldn't. Airbags is a bad example. They'd never do that. But some stuff they do try to test us with by putting some safety equipment as standard on certain vehicles, and we just flatline say, nope, we're not going to value that way. You get 0 for it. Doesn't matter if they put tons of research into it, tons of engineering, it costs them a load of money to do it. 0. All safety equipment should be on all trim levels, from the very basic beginning of the range for a $20,000 vehicle, $10,000 vehicle, whatever it happens to be, right the way up the lineup. So we never, ever, ever encourage them to do that, which is why it always gets a 0. Just need to hammer that home. If any manufacturers are watching, please do not add safety equipment as an option or on higher trim levels. All right, we're at the final hurdle. So what are you going to pay? You're going to pay Toyota $2,645 to go from an XSE to a Limited. What is it worth in my opinion? In 3 years' time, $750. I think you're going to lose nearly $2,000 over 3 years if you pick the Limited model, $1,895 to be specific. Some key items in the Limited, the JBL audio system, the digital screen, and the ventilated seats. A couple of those are options on the XSE. My advice, I wouldn't get the Limited model. I don't think it is worth it. I would get the XSE, and if you really want the JBL system and a few other things, then I would just probably pay for the option pack that has it. But in my opinion, there's very minimal changes from the XSE to the Limited for the amount that they want to charge you versus what you get in the XSE. So that's my advice. Get the XSE. If you agree or disagree, please jump into the comments. I'm happy to debate with anybody who does that. If you like this video, please give it a like. Subscribe for more. I'm going to do Sequoia, Tacoma, and every vehicle I can possibly imagine on these videos as often as I can. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.